Hello, my name is Eric Putkonen. Thank you for joining me. Today we're talking about looking more deeply. And of course, when I say looking, I don't mean just with the eyes, but also the ears, the nose, the tongue, using all the senses more deeply. Perhaps it's because of the times we're constantly being dragged on to the next thing and we're hurrying through that we need to make quick assessments and move on. But we have formed this habit of having a very superficial awareness, looking very shallowly at things. And as soon as we recognize it and can label it, we quit looking. And from that point on, most of the data per se that we're pulling on is our memory of the item, not the item itself. So, if I showed you an orange, as soon as you saw the orange, you may label it's an orange. And from that point on, you're not really looking at it. You just have your memories of what oranges are. I know what it is. You're not looking at this current orange and why this current orange is unique. The depth of color, perhaps indicating ripeness or, not ripeness. If it's close enough, there might be a smell, but you're not noticing that. It's just the label. The label, and then from there, the mind moves on to the next object and doesn't look. And it's very, very shallow. And this becomes an issue when we're talking about spiritual practices like, questioning and delving into who am I? Because the old habit of looking very shallowly, superficially comes in. I mean, somebody will look and go, well, I looked, and as far as I can tell, I'm the body. Well, really, are you? Are you all the body? Well, I don't know. That's because they didn't look. As soon as they went, I feel I'm the body, they quit looking. And so I, kind of guided look more deeply. And so we even, you can go through this questioning of, well, am I all the body? If I get a nail clipping or a hair clipping, or I have my appendix or tonsils removed, am I any less me? Am I diminished in some way? No. You are still feeling just as much you as you've always been. Nothing was lost. And so you can't be those parts. What other parts could be removed, lost, changed, and you would still remain to be you? And in this way, you're looking more and more deeply. We need to stop letting ourselves label and move on, or get a quick answer and move on. Instead, we need to look more deeply. And in looking more deeply, it means we need to keep looking. You can't turn away to something else and get distracted. And that's what so much of spirituality is about, is constant distraction, something new, something new. It's like, I tried this, it didn't work, let's go on to something else. And we do this even with looking. I looked, I saw, I'm moving on to something else that might be more interesting, or, might influence my awakening more in some way. And this is a huge mistake. All of spirituality really comes down to the basic question, who am I? What am I? And unless you really know what you are, you haven't looked deeply enough. Anything else is distraction. You need to keep looking at what is, at the self. And as you look, more is seen. As I said in a prior video, we can look, but seeing is a grace. Just like you can look for the ketchup in the fridge and not see it. And then my wife would just pull it out of the fridge door as if it was always there. But, you can look, but seeing is a grace. And the way seeing is more likely the longer you look. And so you need to look deeply. You need to continue looking and not get distracted. Now let's try this kind of an experiment. Because as I've been going through all this, Let's try to make it a little more practical. What is experienced felt now? And up until this point, you may not have been aware of the weight of your own body on the chair, or, you know, on whatever furniture, floor, or wherever you're sitting, standing, whatever. But do you feel the weight of the body on there? Is there any tension in the body? How's the alignment? Are you really upright? Because if you're upright, it requires very little muscles to keep you upright. But if you're leaning in some way, you need a lot more muscle to fight gravity. And so, can you feel it? How much are you fighting gravity? Are you upright? Are you straight? Do you feel the air going through the nostrils when you inhale? Which nostril does the air seem to be more predominantly going through? It's all these details. I mean, if you're going, yeah, I'm aware of breathing in, I feel it coming through the nostrils, you may have never even bothered to notice which nostril the air is coming through more predominantly. And it's cyclical. The nostrils switch throughout the day. Sometimes it can be fairly equal, but usually one or the other is predominant. Well, as you're being aware of the air coming in through the nostrils, which I have mentioned many times in other videos, have you ever noticed which nostril is more predominantly open, where the air is coming through more predominantly? If not, it's because you never looked. You just stopped at, I feel the air coming through, and you moved on to the next thing. You didn't delve deeply. While the air is coming through, it's more predominantly, this nostril or that nostril. Do you feel the air coming down through the back of the throat? What's the temperature? I mean, if it's a cool day, you may feel the air going all the way down quite clearly. Do you feel the diaphragm move? Do you feel the chest expand? As the chest expands, is there any constriction? Do you feel like there's a band or anything that's constricting the airway? And if there is, that's something to tag later for future inquiry as to why the body's holding tension here, which is restricting breath. But as you're feeling the air, you also have, do you feel how the clothes are laying on the body? How are the clothes fitting? I know that if you're sitting with your back on something, it will sometimes shift the clothing and make it pinch somewhere. Well, how are the clothes laying on you? Is it pinching? Is it tight? There is so much to be aware of. It's not a look at it and continue on either. It's you're feeling more and more. So you're feeling all of it. Feeling the air going in the nostrils. I feel the chest expand. I feel all this simultaneously. You're feeling more and more and more. You're not moving. It's not a focus. It's not delving deeply. Is you continue looking, but it's not like you're focusing to toss everything out. Because over-focus means losing awareness. When you become focused, it means you're losing awareness of everything else. And this is not what you want to do. You do not want to lose awareness. And so it is not a focused type of looking more deeply. It is just a continuing to look and noticing more and more and more and more. And so as you're sitting here, what else are you feeling? Do you feel the pulse in the wrist? Do you hear it in the ear, or do you feel it on the neck? Do you feel the heartbeat? Do you feel the blood coursing somewhere, indicating the pulse? Most of the time, we don't bother noticing this stuff. We don't consider it relevant, but it's everything that's going on now. And now is the only thing that is relevant. We keep trying to make the past and future the most relevant thing. Well, the past is just a memory, and the future is imaginative speculation. It isn't what is right now. So as you're looking more deeply, the only place you can look is now. Now is the only place that there is. Everything else is memory or imagination. And so as you're feeling more and more and more, do you also hear the plane going over? Birds chirping? There's all these sounds going on at the same time. And it's not that you're needing to intend to notice all this stuff. I mean, there's a little bit of an intent of when you're trying to see more deeply that you're continuing to look. The intent is not looking away, not looking at something else. And that something else is, whatever is not within the senses, which is basically thoughts, memories, imaginations, daydreaming. None of that applies. And so as you're feeling the body and you're trying to get all the senses, you're delving into this more deeply, more deeply. You're looking more deeply. Because there is far more data coming in through the senses than conscious awareness can keep up with. Subconsciously, we're aware of a little bit more. Because under hypnotism, when you kind of get the conscious mind out of the way, more can be recalled that we don't recall consciously. So the brain is recording more than what is consciously within conscious awareness, is what I mean. Within conscious awareness is only aware of so much. Subconsciously is a bit more. Not that you need to increase conscious awareness to include all of the subconscious or whatever it is. It's not like you're expanding conscious awareness constantly, because there's a certain bandwidth limit. But as you're becoming more and more fully aware of now, looking deeply at what is now, the senses of the body, feeling the weight of the body, feeling any restrictions, tensions, pulse, the breath, the balance, heat, cold. Do you feel anything? Do you feel any wind or air or something going over the skin? Is the room, is the room you're in slightly hot, and so is there sweat forming on, do you feel sweat forming on the arms? There's all this stuff you can be aware of. And as you become aware of all this stuff, maybe not quite simultaneously, but much of it at the same time, because again, there's a bandwidth limit, what'll happen is there's no room for thought. And so you won't be thinking about anything, because there just isn't enough bandwidth for thought. You're just being aware of everything. And if you find that if you're sitting in meditation and the mind starts to wander, it's because you weren't being aware anymore. At some point, you decide it wasn't worth looking anymore. And so you quit looking. And that freed up some bandwidth for the mind to wander and thoughts to resume. But what else are you feeling in the body? It's not like we stopped. So as I started talking again, were you losing awareness of your surroundings? Were you losing awareness of the body? And this partially is what happens when you focus. And so in the looking more deeply, it is a soft focus. It's kind of almost like in martial arts they call it eagle vision or something. But in the martial arts, as you're learning anything regarding combat, focus is the problem, because if you are focused, it narrows the vision and makes it tunnel vision, and then you don't notice other things that are going on. And so if you are paying attention to the person's fists, you won't notice what's happening with their body. And so in the martial arts, you're taught to diffuse the vision, to not really focus, to actually keep it where you can see the peripherals. I mean, out, you can still see your hands. Now, the what's in front of you isn't as sharp as it once was, of course, because that sharpness is when you focus. So it's a little fuzzier, but you can still see your hands, you can see around you. And so if someone else is running up to ambush you in a fight, you can see it coming because you're not focused on the opponent or their hands. You can see what's going on around you. And when you have this diffused view, you can also see how their body's shifting, because this diffused view, although it's not as good in terms of detail, in terms of fine detail, it is very good at tracking motion. And so with this diffused view, you can see how they're shifting the body. You can see the weight. Is it on the rear leg or the foreleg? You can see, so if they're trying to do a feint, if they're acting like they're throwing one, say a right, but they're really planning on hitting you with a left, their weight will give it away. The way their body is turning will give it away. Their hips, their shoulders, the weight on their feet will give it away. And so if you're just focused on the hands and you're going, oh, the right's coming in, you'll fall for every feint because you don't see everything else. And the whole point of this is I'm trying to talk about a diffused awareness. And this is what it means when you're just being fully aware. Fully aware is a diffused kind of awareness. You feel the body, you feel the breath, you hear the birds chirp, you feel all this going on. You sense all this stuff going on. You're not overly focused. And when you're trying to look more deeply, it doesn't mean focusing too much. It is perhaps, instead of allowing the attention, because like I said, there's a fixed bandwidth, and so attention kind of wanders a little bit. You're still being aware of now, but maybe you weren't aware of the pulse or the heartbeat, but because the attention was fixed on something else. You're still sensing, hearing, feeling the weight, feeling the breath, and your attention momentarily might have been fixed on some tension in the body, and so you didn't feel the heartbeat for a moment, and then kind of the heartbeat comes back and it kind of floats around a little bit. And when you're looking more closely, if you're looking more deeply, all it means is instead of letting it drift a little bit, you're kind of holding it over an area. Not that you're letting the focus come in and fixate. Instead, you're just you're guiding the wandering attention to stay for a little bit longer, to see more deeply, without focusing. And in that way, you're not losing awareness of everything else, and you can even perhaps see how everything's connected. Because it's like, well, I feel the heat, I feel this, therefore I feel the sweat, I feel how the clothes are perhaps absorbing the sweat, so I feel cool spots. There's all this stuff that you could feel. And in, say, feeling the hand and say sweat on the hand, if you kind of, instead of letting the attention wander, just kind of kept it on the hand, go, what else do I feel in the hand? And go more deeply in that. Do I feel a heat, a pulsation, an energy of some kind, a spaciousness? What else can be felt? There's all these different things that can be felt. And that's from just keeping the wandering attention hovering over an area, for a bit longer instead of hovering. And of course, even then, it might wander to something else. And that's fine too. Perhaps something else caught the attention. And you notice that maybe your heartbeat was regular, irregular, whatever, and having an effect somewhere else on the body. Or maybe you notice you can feel the heartbeat, but you feel at the same time you start feeling the pulses everywhere else. You feel it maybe in the toe, or at the neck, or at the hand, or you start feeling all this stuff, and you can delve more deeply into that. You just keep looking. What else can I notice? If the attention hovers over this a bit longer, and so I keep looking, and so I'm looking more deeply, what else is noticed without letting everything focus in where you're losing awareness of everything else? Like I said, a diffused awareness. And in this way, you can get deeper and deeper with different things. And if the practice is you're trying to focus onto something particular, that works too. I mean, if you're doing a different kind of practice where it's like, I just want to focus on what I feel and think myself to be. And so I'm not too worried about what's going on in the environment. Well, that's fine. You can devote all the attention on what you feel and think yourself to be. But if you find unrelated thoughts, the mind starts wandering, and you can't keep focus on that means you've allowed too much bandwidth to open up. And so what you need to do again is just expand to outside of yourself a bit, or be aware of more of what's going on in the body. You need to expand awareness of now to eat up the bandwidth. And then what you do is you just keep the attention from wandering away from who and what do I feel myself to be. And you just kind of hover over that. And so it's a fine line. You got to play with it. But the trick is to keep the awareness on things instead of saying, I know what it is, and look away. And that's really the bulk of it. Because people are like, well, I know I can feel this, that, or the other thing. And so you're relying on your memory of it as opposed to feeling how it is now, this time. Nothing truly repeats. Every experience is unique. And if you're relying on past, going, it's just like last time, well, then you're not fully aware. Because it's not just like last time. This time is the first time. It's always the first time. It's ever new. And in that case, the past will not help you. The past can only tell you what it was, what was in common, but not what makes it different than last time. The past is not what you want to refer to. It's the present, seeing it as it is now. It's not like last time. It doesn't have to be like last time. In fact, it can't be like last time. And so keep delving into it. Keep looking. What else do you notice? Did you notice that? Well, if you have any questions, comments, please post below. If you know of anybody that may enjoy this video or others, please feel free to share a link or let others know about the channel. But until next time, Thank you much.